Hi friends, it's Jess with Our Bipolar. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1 and I was diagnosed 26 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. Today I'm here to talk about how bipolar disorder can wreak havoc on your life. Raise your hand if you have bipolar and it has caused major destruction in your life, at least in the beginning. Most of us know this. There may be a few people with bipolar out there who did not have their lives kind of turned upside down, but I think a lot of us experienced a lot of upheaval with the onset of bipolar symptoms or, with your diagnosis. I was diagnosed pretty shortly after having symptoms for the first time. But before we really get into it, I'll ask you to subscribe to my channel, like this video if you like it, and comment. I would love to hear your experiences, and just so everyone knows, we are not alone in this. Okay, just right off the bat, I want to say that if you have bipolar disorder, and you should know this, and I hope you do, but it is not your fault. It is not your fault. We ended up having this disorder, people think that it's mostly genetic, so it's been passed down through your family in some way. And also, a lot of us had trauma in our lives or some other stress that could have triggered the bipolar and brought it out. None of these things are our fault. I don't want you to go around thinking that somehow you brought bipolar onto yourself. You didn't, okay? So let's just get that clear. Bipolar, it is something that you can learn to live with. And so I'm just talking about more in the beginning stages when you first started having bipolar symptoms or you were first diagnosed. Now, for most of us, that is either like in our teens or 20s. So I think the average age of diagnosis for bipolar is in the mid-20s, and the average age of onset of bipolar is more like teens to 20s. So I know that was true for me. Of course, there are going to be people who had bipolar come on much later in life, and that would cause major upheaval as well. But for those of us who started having symptoms in our 20s, let's think about it. This is a major turning point in most people's lives, like going into adulthood, right? So I know for me, I can only speak from my experience, but I was diagnosed at 19, but I was just about to turn 20, like in a month. So I was in college, and this caused such a problem for me. First of all, I had no idea that this could happen. No one in my family that I knew of had bipolar disorder or another serious mental illness. So I was in college at the University of Pittsburgh, and I started having these symptoms when I go back for my sophomore year. And I'm not gonna go way into it, but I talk all about it in this video that's gonna pop up right now. And it talks about my first manic episode and what happened, but I will just tell you how my life was majorly disrupted. So I have that first really major manic episode with psychosis, and I had been having depression before that, and I was, misdiagnosed with depression the year before. It was like my life as I knew it was over. So I had been going to school pre-med. I tried to go back to school after this manic episode. I can't keep up. I'm still having symptoms. I'm on medication that is not really helping me. I realize I can't be pre-med anymore. Like being a doctor, like that dream is over. So that happens really quickly. And then also what happens is I have to leave school because not only can I not keep up with that workload, it's like I just can't stay on and do anything at that point. So I take a semester off. During that time, I had close friends. I had close friends from high school and then now in college. And these people are all calling me at my parents' house, and I am just ignoring every single one of them because the shame that we feel can be unbearable. And I just didn't know what to say to them. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, and I didn't know who I was, like how to be their friend. Like, was I still that person? Like, who was I? So it was kind of an identity crisis. Eventually they stopped calling. People are gonna try for so long and then they stop. So to me, and even as I'm explaining it, my bipolar experience, like just being diagnosed and having symptoms for the first time, it was a major trauma in my life. And like I said, a lot of people with bipolar have already experienced trauma in their lives, and I had experienced a lot of childhood trauma. So it was rough. And then even when I got back on track, I went back to school. I had to change schools and go to this school in my hometown, Washington and Jefferson College. And I was able to get my degree, but totally different subject area. I ended up majoring in English, minoring in art. And, it ended up working. But my life, the path I wanted to take, became totally different. And just into my 20s, I didn't want to be different from anyone else. This is what's happening at these kind of ages. You want to fit in, you want to go out, meet people. I moved to Washington, D.C., so I was living in this big city, and you're constantly meeting new people. Like, people are coming and going from that town. So I was going out with friends, going out to bars and clubs late at night, drinking. I was taking my medication, but the medication wasn't working, and I was having a really hard time just getting on meds that worked at all. And at this point, I was still cycling a lot between depression and mania, but the meds were actually keeping the psychosis at bay. So they were doing that, at least. And I was mostly working, but I was missing a lot of work at times. And then I was having a lot of cycling because I was staying up late, I was drinking, I was also not going and doing lab work for my meds. I was doing the very bare minimum. And I was so young that just felt okay to me. And I realized later that obviously it was not okay and I needed to make all these lifestyle changes, but I wasn't completely aware at that time that I shouldn't be staying up late, that I should be getting regular sleep. Like, that was the most important thing. And I should be exercising regularly and eating well and all these things that I do now. I don't know about you, my first doctors did not explain that to me. They were like, here's the medication, you need to take it at these times. That was pretty much it. It wasn't until my most recent psychiatrist that I realized the importance of all of these lifestyle changes. And, to me, medication is the most important thing. And if you're still struggling and trying to find the right medication, the right lifestyle, I understand. I've been there. I think we've all been there. And I really hope you can get it worked out. Bipolar causes so much upheaval in your life, and it really is destructive with relationships. I know I was dating people in my 20s. I was just like dating people for all the wrong reasons. Then I started dating someone who felt really stable and sort of like a security blanket, but that wasn't the right reason to date them either. And, I put this person through a whole lot. I mean, I was going through having symptoms really often. And then there would be times I would be hypomanic and I would be like so much fun and like a joy to be around until it got bad when I went into mania. And I don't think they understood. I mean, how could they understand? I wouldn't have understood it either. I think the really rough times back then were when I was depressed and I was having those feelings of wanting to end my life, which came up quite often back then. And I would just put this person through the ringer, like talking to them and saying how I didn't want to be here anymore, and them just being crushed and trying to help me, but really couldn't help me. I mean, at this point, I needed serious help. And I really wasn't getting it, and I was kind of too dumb to know that I needed to go inpatient, really, and go to a hospital. So I think back then, being in my 20s, those feelings of shame for having this illness at all, which is, you know, ridiculous. Shame for feeling like I'm a burden and putting loved ones through all of this upheaval as well. And then the actual traumatic experience of not only having bipolar, being diagnosed with a mental illness, but also now I have to live the rest of my life this way. I resisted that. I did not want to do that. So if you're in that place, I totally understand, and I think most of us have been, and it's just not a smooth road. It took me at least 10 years to get the medication straight, and that wasn't enough. I mean, as you probably know, if you take medication for bipolar, it's really not enough. And even all the lifestyle changes, like getting the sleep, taking care of yourself, exercising, having a routine, all of these things can help. But if you're like me, you still have symptoms. Now, yes, at this point in my life, I'm now 45. My symptoms are few and far between. And when I do get symptoms, they are mild. I get hypomania, I get some low-level depression, but I don't have the extreme highs and lows, and I don't have the psychosis. And I haven't had that, gosh, in about 20 years. So it is better, but it took me a long time to just accept that this is my life. I'm going to live the rest of my life this way. This is a lifelong illness. And like I said, I know it's not my fault, and I don't feel bad about it anymore. I feel like this was just my journey. There was no avoiding it. And yes, I had many years before my diagnosis when I felt like I was a different person, like I didn't have to live with this at all. But it was always there. And it probably peeked its head out a bit, even when I was a kid and in my teens. There is hope. And if you're still struggling, please just hold on and, you know, talk to people in the comments, get some support, and I hope you have support in your own life as well. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.